This video is all about how you can use a strengths-based approach to harness your potential and give direction to your career development. So what do we mean by a strength? It's quite common to hear people talk about having strengths, but what are these and how do we identify our own? Strengths are behaviours and skills that we perform well, find energising and do frequently. They are important as we are most likely to feel like we are thriving at work when we are demonstrating our strengths. The first element of a strength, something that we perform well, is the most obvious. We can see that we thrive at work when we are good at something, when we are effective, when we display a high standard of skills and behaviours that we can see in ourselves and others value in us. So one element of a strength is when we are objectively good at something. However, what if we're good at something, but we just don't enjoy it? We don't feel a spark of excitement to be doing it. We are indifferent to it. In this circumstance, we are unlikely to feel that we are really thriving. This is why the second element of a strength, that we find the behaviour or skill energising, is equally important. The things that make us thrive are the things that we are good at, but also the things that we enjoy, that we feel engaged in, that give us a buzz. The third element, frequency of use, is also key. If we are good at something and we enjoy it, we are more likely to do it. However, there may also be behaviours and skills that we enjoy and are good at, but we don't do frequently. Maybe we don't consider using them for whatever reason, or we haven't had much opportunity to use them or practice them in our role. If we can recognise these and develop them into strengths by finding opportunities to do them more often, we can further thrive at work and truly harness our potential. So a strength is a behaviour or skill that you are good at, and you find energising, and you do frequently. It hits the sweet spot where these three things come together. Research indicates that when we play to our strengths, we are happier, more confident, more resilient, and perform better. We are more effective at focusing our development and more likely to achieve our goals. Therefore, understanding our strengths is a real benefit for career development. Indeed, one of the things that sets the University of York apart from other institutions for our students is our strengths-based approach to employability and careers. As staff, we can also benefit from understanding a strengths-based approach. It can provide us with clarity on how and where to focus our development activities. Our strengths are our areas of true potential for greatness. So how do you understand your own strengths and then use this to boost your development? Activity 1 and 2 in the Strengths Worksheet guide you through this. If you take a look at Activity 1 in the Strengths Worksheet, you'll see that it helps you to identify your own strengths by creating what's known as a strengths grid. Your first step in completing your grid is to identify elements of work that you perform well. Think about these elements in terms of specific behaviours and skills. If your role falls within one of the professional support services job families, you can use the behaviours and skills lists to help you identify these, or you can think of your own that relate to your role. You can write these in your own words, and it helps to think of a small specific element. An example for a behaviour element could be seeking customer feedback, or coming up with new ideas. An example of a skill element could be writing a report, or using Google Sheets to create a database. To help you identify if you perform the element well, consider your own reflections on how well you have done this before, plus any feedback you have from others. If you completed the Behaviours and Skills Audit worksheet, this will help with this task. You can also look back on notes from your performance and development review. The second thing you need to do is to consider the extent to which you find this skill or behaviour enjoyable and energising, as opposed to something that drains your energy. As an example, take the behaviour coming up with new ideas. Do you like doing this? If someone asked you to do a task that involved coming up with new ideas, would you happily do the task? Do you find yourself volunteering for tasks that involve you coming up with new ideas as you enjoy it? Then think about the frequency in which you perform the skill or behaviour. Do you find yourself drawn to it? Do you do it often in your role? If you identify that you perform the element well, you enjoy it, and you do it frequently, write the element in the box titled Realised Strengths. By comparison, if you do something well and enjoy it, but don't do it very often, write it in the box titled Unrealised Strengths. An example of an unrealised strength might be that you enjoy seeking feedback from customers and you do it well, but you don't find yourself seeking customer feedback often. Perhaps you don't have much opportunity to do this in your role, or you just don't really consider doing it. Once you have completed your realised strengths and unrealised strengths, you should now add to the Learned Behaviours box. These are things that you perform well, but you don't enjoy that much. Perhaps they drain your energy or feel like a chore. An example of a learned behaviour is perhaps you are good at writing reports, but you find it a bit dull. You can do it, but it's not that energising to you. As a final step, identify the elements that you don't perform well and you don't enjoy. As a clue, these are likely things that you will avoid doing and send to the bottom of your to-do list. You should write these elements in the weaknesses box. If you find completing your grid difficult, don't worry. You can take your time and add to it gradually. If you'd like further inspiration or want to conduct further exploration into your strengths, you may find it helpful to take an online strengths assessment. The University of York Strengths Programme for Students was developed in collaboration with the organisation Capfinity, who also offer free strengths assessments on their website. If you'd like to take one of these assessments, you can click on the link provided in the Strengths worksheet. Once you have completed all 4 boxes on the grid, you are ready to move on to use this information to help guide your development. Turn now to Activity 2 in the Strengths worksheet. Here you are asked to think about how to use this understanding of your strengths to inform your development. You may like to approach this as a task of self-reflection, but you may also like to work through this with the support of another person, such as your manager or a mentor. When carrying out this task, you may also find it useful to look at the resources on the Drive Your Development section of the Career Development web pages. This section can help you identify development opportunities and create a development plan. In the first box, you are prompted to reflect on your unrealised strengths. Your unrealised strengths are your areas for substantial growth. Do you have untapped potential that you could explore and use to move towards your career goals? How can you find opportunities to carry out tasks and projects that tap into your unrealised strengths? Where would performing these elements more often benefit your role? Where are the opportunities to do more of these, practice them, and test them out so that these become additional areas where you thrive at work? And who can support you in finding these opportunities? Now use the second box to note reflections on your realised strengths. Remember that these are things that you are already doing frequently. Consider how best to use these in your role. How do these strengths link to the aims and objectives of your role? As your realised strengths are the things that you enjoy and are drawn towards, what are the contexts where you can push these further to help the work of your team? And what are the contexts where you might need to rein them in a little? For example, if you have a realised strength in creative storytelling, how can you use this to bring communications to life and make them engaging? Can you use this when giving presentations? Can you help others in your team who don't have this strength? At the same time, are there contexts where you need to dial this back a bit and provide more simple, concise communications. In box 3, you can note down considerations for your career progression. What do your realised and unrealised strengths tell you about the types of roles and tasks that you would enjoy? Where would you thrive? Doing this can really help if you're feeling confused about the myriad of roles out there and perhaps other people's assumptions and expectations about the direction or path that you should take. Can you stop and think and reflect about the type of work that aligns with your strengths? Now move on to box 4, to reflect on your learned behaviours and weaknesses. It can be particularly helpful to work through these with the support of your manager. When thinking about learned behaviours, it's important to remember that whilst you're good at these, they also drain you. Think about which learned behaviours are essential for success in your role. Might there be some which are not essential, but you do out of habit? Can you stop or reduce these? For example, perhaps you are good at writing comprehensive minutes in meetings, but you find it draining and difficult to write and listen to others at the same time. Question whether the meetings you are in require comprehensive minutes, or would taking actions only suffice? Who can you check this with? There will be other learned behaviours that are critical for you to personally carry out in your role. For these, can you think about how to manage your energy? Can you space tasks that rely on your learned behaviours with others that you find more energising? Can you break tasks down into chunks so that you can manage your energy better? Are there certain times of the day or working environments where you feel better placed to carry out these tasks? For both learned behaviours and weaknesses, remember that whilst you may find these draining, they will be another person's strength. Can you find a complementary partner to work with who is energised by the things that drain you? And in turn, can you take on some of the things which they struggle with? When collaborating with others, can you organise the work you do so that you play more to your individual strengths? How can you find out what other people's strengths are so that you can support each other and thrive as a team? When reflecting on your weaknesses, can you improve your performance so that it's enough to get you by? The beauty of a strengths-based approach is it takes you away from the mindset of, I must be exceptional at everything. Think about what would be just good enough for your role. If a weakness is critical for your role, what development support can you seek, and who can help you with this? Also, how can you use your strengths to compensate for your weaknesses? Think of your strengths as your development superpowers. For example, if you have curiosity as a strength, but public speaking is a weakness, can you use your strength in curiosity to help you? Can you use your love of learning and research to look into documented strategies for public speaking? Can you reframe public speaking in your head as an opportunity to experiment and try out these strategies? Can you use public speaking as a way to gather new and interesting feedback that you can use for your development? When you are completing your strengths worksheet, remember that a discussion of your strengths can form a powerful part of a development conversation with your manager. Exploring your realised strengths, your unrealised strengths, your learned behaviours and your weaknesses can help you personalise your plan for development and focus your development in a direction that will help you thrive at work. Remember that you can use your exploration of strengths in combination with the tools and templates in the Driving Your Development section of the Career Development web pages to create a meaningful development plan that will help you achieve your goals.